friends, and welcome back to Lemon Tree Corner. This week in the studio is going to be a little bit different because we aren't going to be doing any sewing. I think we're taking a break from sewing for this week. So I'm going to take you along on the journey of the craft fair this week. So I'm going to film some of that and share that with you, and also give you an update on how well we did. We're going to manifest doing very well in this show. So I will show some clips of that with some voiceover. Other than that, I'm really not sure what else we're getting up to this week. We are going to go through the craft fair boxes that I have of all the supplies that I bring and consolidate that down to as small as possible so that my sister and I can load everything into her minivan and have room for everything and not bring things that we don't need. Like for this show, it has to be all stuff I've handmade, which means our little cute progress keepers, zipper charms are not coming. I can't do a candy box or a candy jar at this show either because they don't want sticky fingers walking around. So we don't need the candy jar or the little egg things where I display the zipper charms or the zipper charms. So we're going to go through the boxes and kind of take out all the stuff we don't need so that hopefully I'm only bringing one of those boxes. Other than that, I wanted to share with you where we are with our 2 crochet projects. They're coming along pretty fast, so I don't know that I'm going to have them to do when we get to our vacation. We've got quite a lot of driving to do. We've got about 6 hours to drive up the coast. So I want to make sure that I have something to work on. We also don't know what the weather's going to be like. I might be looking out the window at the rough seas in the rain and crocheting in front of the window for several days. So I want to make sure that I have enough stuff to do. Plus the 2 projects that we're working on right now are pretty involved. They're not really mindless projects. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ball up all the yarn from our advent calendar and get that project started. I was looking at the Lark's Foot pattern, which is like a 2-row repeat. If I can't get that to look good, because you have to dip down pretty far and have your tension just right, I've come a long way since the last time I tried, so I'm hoping that I can do that correctly. If that doesn't work, there's several other patterns out there that kind of have that color differential, that striking difference that I want in the colors, so that should work pretty nice. And then we're just going to take a break. I have a massage scheduled after the craft fair, and then my husband and I are going to go see the second Dune movie in the theaters. I generally don't go to the theater very often anymore, but when it's a big epic sci-fi kind of thing or beautiful nature thing, I like to see that in the theater. Just get that big experience. So if that sounds like a good time, go ahead and grab a water or a cozy beverage, curl up, and let's get to work. And I totally forgot to show you the projects. Okay, so we went back to our batwing shawl, which is really called the Segway shawl. And if you've watched before, you will recall that I ordered different yarn for it from the yarn I thought I was originally going to be using. So here is what we have so far. We are at ball or color number 3 in the transition. If I can get this to work without unraveling. So we started here. So basically what it looks like is these little wedges. They're curled up now, but when we block it out, they will be nice and even. So it's kind of like a stair step. So we start with one color, went into the second color. We are now on the 3rd color, and I believe there's only 5. So we're getting pretty far along here. And yeah, hoping to be done with that soon. That is one where you have to count every single row because there's a certain amount of double crochets and half double crochets per line and per wedge. It all changes, so you really have to count and be present when you're working on this, which is another reason I'd like to have a mindless project to work on that I don't have to think about, especially during the car ride. This might not be a good one to take with us and try and do in the car The other one we have is in our big bag because we are making a sweater and it is getting quite large. So this is my first garment pattern. And we are making the Azarella sweater. It's like a little cardigan. And it's probably the easiest one I could find for a first-time garment sweater person. So, once again, get this large enough. I'm gonna back you up. We're gonna try it on and see how big it is at this point. Okay, it is really looking like a sweater. So, we just have armholes right now. We're gonna be adding long sleeves in later. It is wool, so it is quite heavy. We're about halfway down on the repeats, but really since it's top down, I can make it as long or short as I want it. So I don't know if we're going to get through all the repeats. If you can see right here, it is almost to like where the end of my normal shirts go. I might want it a little further down the leg, but not much. So it's just super cute. We've got this little cluster stitch that we're doing, so that's fun. And our little collar. I might add in like a frog clip or a loop or something here. I'm not really going to add in buttonholes because I don't want to ruin it and I don't know how to do that. But that's what I'm hoping to do eventually after this is done. And then it is like full long sleeves. I can do 3/4 or I can do full sleeves. That's the nice thing about this pattern is it's top down. So you can adjust the length for how long you want it. And then when we make the sleeves separately, I can adjust for how long I want the sleeves. But at this point, the project is getting really big and hard to carry around and really work on anywhere. In fact, it's so big, I have to like work on it at a desk. I can't really work on it at the couch. If you saw one of my very first videos, or maybe it was even before I started making videos, I think it was a blog post that I did. I took a boppy pillow, you know, the ones you use for nursing, and I put a new cover on it. I attached kind of a parachute clip and some webbing to kind of secure it around your body so that it wouldn't shift, so that I could use that for crocheting. I'm out of breath. So I broke that out thinking, oh, I never use that. I need to be using that if I'm on the couch and I've got this big heavy project and it's like hurting my arms and my hands to hold it up. So I broke it out and it doesn't work great. It doesn't wrap around the sides far enough for me to really put my elbows down. And the parachute clip kind of hurts your back as you're sitting down. So I've seen all those commercials lately for the gaming crafting pillow, and they talk about how it's much better than the boppy pillow and it wraps around the sides better. So I'm thinking about that, because when I saw those commercials I was like, whatever, just get a nursing pillow. Like, why would you spend extra money on this other pillow? They're just trying to sell you something. But I can see the benefits of it now that I went back and tried my boppy pillow. I can really see how those side pieces would help better. So I might want to try one of those out and see if that helps, because in addition to this being heavy, I have another sweater pattern that I'm going to make after this that's also going to be kind of a wool heavy fiber. And I plan on making sweaters in the future, probably more like a granny square sweater, which means I wouldn't have that whole big weighty project on me at once. But, you know, it's probably a good investment, and I can get rid of the boppy pillow and just have this one instead. So that's something to think about for the future. Oh, alrighty. So we have our pile of stuff that I normally bring with me to a craft fair. I had to try and consolidate this into one bin, mostly because a lot of this stuff I don't need for this craft fair. One of the things we did have to do is get the tablecloths that go all the way to the floor. So I got these 2 tablecloths that need to replace something in here. So let's open these 2 up. So I have these old tablecloths, which I had already bought new tablecloths to replace those. So these need to come out. They're just looking kind of junky, so I don't really want those anymore. We've got all of our signs. Oh, here's the new tablecloths, see? Just beautiful. So what I'm thinking of doing is I have to do these as the underlay, but I could do these on top. We also have to figure out if we're gonna do our big banner, there's nowhere for me to hang the banner. So that's gonna be the problem with that. I'm just gonna go through these 2 bins and pick out the things we need, the things we don't need. I don't need the drawing entry forms. We're gonna replace those with our newsletter forms, which I don't know why I don't do a newsletter. So I'm gonna start, that's one of the things I can do this week since I'm not doing any sewing, is we can think about a newsletter. So let me know what you think. I was thinking maybe a quarterly newsletter instead of a monthly. I want to come up with a cute template to use, and then we can get that going, because that's another way that I can just communicate with people who don't necessarily watch the channel or anything. Yard work going on, but we're gonna get started. So I can't wait any longer. So here's my Bird Street yarn advent that we did. I've got everything in here. I've also got my other version of the lavender yarn that I chose not to use for that batwing shawl. So that's here. I was gonna try and see if I could incorporate it in with the advent yarn and make the blanket a little bit bigger. But after looking at how I had it laid out before, I really don't think that's gonna work very well. So I think I'm probably better off not doing that. I'm gonna go ahead and lay the yarn out the way I had it before. And I think I'm gonna lay them out differently than the way I had it before. So I have a picture on my computer screen right now of what it looked like. I think I like these 2 together, and then the blues and the pinks. Another thing I have to figure out here. I don't know how wide to make the blanket because I feel like this is gonna have to be a little skinnier than I normally make lap size blankets because there's not a lot of yarn, although we are adding in 4 more skeins of yarn. So I'm confused about that. It's hard to visualize. And then I'm wondering if I should repeat this whole thing again and then do each section, or if I should do all 4 and then go back to the beginning. So that's another question. Okay, so I think we've got our color scheme worked out. I went ahead and watched the tutorial and just did like a little sample piece that we can use. I think it looks good. My tension is a little off. And then the yarns are all kind of different. Like the lavender yarn is a little bit thinner than the other yarns. Not that much, but just enough. So that was a little challenging, but you can see how this looks, the larkspur pattern, or lark's foot pattern. I really love the way this looks. I think these colors together are gonna look great as we blend up. It's just a little too big. I feel like this needle, or the hook size is a little too big. So I'm gonna redo this. I was using a 5mm hook, and I'm gonna redo this in a 4. I'm gonna redo this in a 4, see what this looks like, and then see what we can do. Okay, I'm definitely liking the way this looks better. It looks a lot cleaner and neater in the smaller hook size. So we're gonna go with this. I still don't think I like the tutorial. My edges are very weird, and she's not very clear on like how to repeat. Like this one in particular is a lot bigger than it should be. So I think I'm gonna look up a different tutorial and see if I can find a tutorial that works better for me, and then print out a written pattern. But other than that, I think we're good to go. My only question is, am I gonna have enough yarn to make a lap blanket for the couch? And do I even want a lap blanket for the couch? This is really pretty. I feel like it should be a shawl, but it would be like a huge shawl by the time I'm done with all of this. So I think I will just make it as wide as I want to make it, and then we'll see how tall it gets. Take 2 looks a lot better. I did it to about 40 inches. I measured what would be comfortable on my lap. Problem here is that I've only got this much yarn left, which is, I believe, less than less than half the ball. So that kind of screws me, because it means I'm not going to be able to do 2 rows of each. I mean, 2 stripes of each color. So that's not good. So I'm thinking maybe this becomes a shawl instead. If I make it a shawl, I can take away these colors. I can actually take away these colors, I think. If I put the blue back in here, that might work. So, yeah, I don't know. Because the blues, I don't feel like they really went with the thing anyway. So if I just took these colors, we would be to a regular size shawl, I think, and they all would look very, very autumny. So I'm not sure how I feel about this project anymore. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the craft show and give you a review of that. Before we even did the craft show, my sister and I have been going to the Torrance Craftsmen's Guild fall fairs for a long time. So pretty much since I moved back here. So maybe like I've been here longer than 5 years, but the last 5 years we've made it a point to go to the show. So I already knew that the show was well trafficked, well shopped. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to join the guild. So what it came down to is just my own fears and doubts about if I was going to sell anything. If you remember at the last show we were at, it wasn't just me, everybody did very poorly as far as sales went, and it just kind of put a damper on my dreams and my goals for this business. So it was just kind of a sad thing, which is why I wanted to join the guild and be able to do these shows. The guild is very selective about who they let in, so the show size is pretty small to begin with, and I like the fact that it was indoors, so just had to rethink my booth layout and everything. But other than that, it was just the usual fears of pricing. Do I have the items people are going to want to buy? I never know. Like, one show everybody wants small things, one show everybody wants big things. So I just kind of make things that I want to make and hope they sell. So it's really not like a very business-like venture. When you do handmade items, it's very difficult to tell what the market is going to want to buy. So for this show, other than being nervous and forgetting my hooks at home, my dear husband had to come drive all the way over and drop those off for me, because while I was reorganizing my boxes and taking out all of the outdoor stuff, I somehow put the hooks in the outdoor stuff, even though I knew in my mind that I needed them. So I started off a little shaky and a little nervous, and then people started coming, and people started talking to me and complimenting the bags and buying the bags. So it turned out to be a really wonderful show, probably the best show I've done so far, which is great. The most sales I've done so far, definitely. And just a nice variety. We had people who wanted the piggies and the coin purses. We had people who wanted the new Harrelson belt bags that we just made. And we also had people buy some of the items from last year's year of bags. So like the things that I'm not going to make again, like the olive vanity case, and what else was there? Oh, the Nora Doctor bag and things like that. So some big ticket items. And we also had somebody buy the Bonnie Bucket bag. So I get to make some more Bonnie Bucket bags to replace that, and one of the Finch hobos. So some nice priced items as well, which really round out the show. I mean, if I don't have those higher ticket items available, I would have lost out on like the majority. Like that was like half the show, you know, half the show earnings that I made were those 4 larger bags. So that's a note to self, to always make sure to have some of the higher priced bags available in amongst everything else. So it's just nice to go and see everybody and get the compliments and just feel like I'm on the right track. Because a lot of times I'm just sitting here in my house making stuff, and I don't know how they're gonna do out there in the real world. So it was nice to give my babies a new home and make room for some more stuff that we can make this year. And it was also wonderful to meet Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Sandy, one of our subscribers, came with her daughter and shopped and visited, and it was just nice to meet you. A lot of times I'm just sitting here talking and sending this out into the ether, and I know that you're watching, and I think of us as friends, but a lot of times I don't actually know you, or I don't get to meet you. So it was really nice to meet you and meet your daughter and have you come and see my work in person. So thank you for coming and showing up for me. So the other big thing we did this week was trying to figure out our Advent yarns. So I don't want to tilt them too much, but here are our Advent yarns. I put them in a basket so they're more mobile. I'm not sure how to keep them in color order other than working on this at home, which kind of defeats the purpose. You'll see I went back and forth on what I was doing. I was going to do a blanket. I didn't have enough yarn for a blanket. We're now making a shawl, but we're still using that lark's foot stitch. So I can either get little pieces of paper and stitch markers and label these all with numbers, or I can keep them in a basket and work on this right now and take a different project with me on our vacation. So that might be what I do, is just work on this right now. It's not going to take me that long, I don't think. So let's take a look at where we are so far. It's really hard to get the colors distinct, but this is what we've done so far. So I have a plan of what colors are going to be in what order, but then sometimes I get them next to each other, like these two are pretty similar. but the other large skein that I was going to put here was really similar. So this is the furthest away color I can get to that. So I think I'm going to struggle with having that stark contrast of color, but it is long enough to wrap around us, so that's good. So I'm just going to continue playing around with that. The other thing that I could do is scrap that whole idea and do this mini set with whatever other minis I want to add to it. But I kind of like the idea of just taking that lavender yarn and making something with it on its own, because I was really hesitant to split up all that lavender yarn that so perfectly melds into each other. I didn't really want to be left with like one skein of that, so I think it's better that that stays the way it does. Okay, so we're kind of done with the big push. Just been relaxing, got a massage, taking care of all the things in the house that have been kind of put to the wayside while preparing for the craft fair. And now we have 2 weeks before our vacation, so perfectly timed. I'm gonna maybe do some scrapbooking. I have to take my Juki out to find someone to service my Juki. It needs a spa day. It has been run ragged. I think I bought it 3 or 4 years ago at this point, and it has not been serviced, so I really need to do that. It's starting to go, it's got some timing issues right now. I've been oiling it and everything, but you know, it needs to be professionally looked at. So this is a good time to do that because I'm not in a rush to make anything. So we'll go do that and see if that can be taken care of. In the meantime, we have some crochet, we have some scrapbooking we can do. I've got that book nook. I don't know if I want to tear into that before the trip or not. And then also did a postmortem with my sister on which bags that I should make next. So I really have to go through and figure out what patterns I'm making next. We haven't made tote bags for a while, so I'd like to make some larger bags since I sold a lot of the larger bags. Thank you for joining me this week. I hope you had fun, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. See you back here. Love you. Bye.